back to another cult movie review with me, Bo, here on the Film Scene Investigation channel. Hope everyone is doing good. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the 2001 Mexican drama Tu Mama Tambien. Before we get into it, guys, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. All the support is greatly appreciated. So, Tu Mama Tambien from 2001 was directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who also co-wrote the movie with his brother Carlos. Starring Diego Luna, Gael Bernal and Maribel Verdú, this movie is best described as a coming-of-age movie set in the Mexican desert. Made on a small budget of $5 million, the movie went on to gross over $30 million at the box office and subsequently received an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. Now, I saw this movie way back in college, and it was actually the first foreign movie I'd actually ever seen. I've got very vivid memories of this movie, and you know, as I've got older and had my own experiences, I would definitely say this is a movie that I now appreciate a lot more. So the story of Tu Mama Tambien followed the friends Julio and Tenoch, two adolescent carefree teens who, were basically always up for a good time. The guys had girlfriends, but at the start of the film we saw them travelling to Italy, leaving the guys behind. Both Julio and Tenoch had reservations about their girlfriends potentially meeting other men while on this trip, even though their girlfriends promised that they would remain faithful. It wasn't exactly an ideal situation for the guys, who found themselves at odds on, what to do next. Eventually they decided that they would basically become bachelors again, forgetting about their girlfriends while they were away. Julio came from a wealthy background, which he basically wasn't too fond of. Yes, he liked the perks and the wealth, but he didn't share the same values as his parents. He and Tenoch were a couple of slackers, more interested in drugs than politics. We saw the guys attend this lavish wedding ceremony where they met this older woman called Luisa, played by Maribel Verdú. The guys were head over heels for her completely from the start, and they did their utmost to impress her. The pair came up with this random idea about taking this road trip to this secluded paradise beach that they had supposedly discovered. Even though this place didn't actually exist, the guys were, taking their chances. And Luisa did show some minor interest, but if anything, she was just being polite and making small talk. She never really had any intention of actually going along on this road trip. But soon after, Luisa's life would literally turn upside down when she learned that her husband Jano had been unfaithful to her. Jano called Luisa late one night and, in this drunken haze, declared that he had cheated. And of course, Luisa was angry and she was upset. She loved her husband and she'd been taken for a fool. In a sudden change of heart, Luisa packed her bags and decided to travel along with Julio and Tenoch. She felt trapped. She had to get away, and she took the first opportunity that came up. While this idyllic beach never actually existed, it was too late for the guys to back out, so they pressed on and pretended that they knew where they were going. And from there, the film turned into a more conventional road movie that saw the trio travel through rural Mexico. During the trip, we saw the characters go through various trials and tribulations together. Luisa was still very much coming to terms with her relationship issues that she had with her husband. We would also discover later on that Louisa had been diagnosed with cancer. So yeah, I mean, taking everything into account, she was very vulnerable and not thinking straight when she ended up sleeping with Tenoch in a hotel room. She initiated the sex between her and Tenoch, and of course he was only too happy to oblige. But Julio discovered them together, and yeah, he took it badly. This all led to him and Tenoch falling out and turning the trip into a disaster. These guys were two friends, two best friends, and suddenly they were at odds with each other, which only highlighted their immaturity. I mean, it was already a interesting dynamic having this attractive older woman traveling along with these adolescent teenagers. But once you added the sexual tension between all three of them, yeah, this only led to misery and regret. The final part of Tu Mama Tambien saw all three characters have this sexual encounter with each other. Julio and Tenoch would end up kissing and becoming intimate with each other, but this was no declaration of love, more like a drunken mistake that literally tore their friendship apart. Having these two heterosexual characters ultimately get it together, you know, it was an interesting twist to add at the end of the story, but I wasn't exactly surprised. I mean, throughout the film, we saw Julio and Tenoch express some very homosexual tendencies with each other. I mean, for example, before the road trip began, we saw a scene with the guys laying on these two diving boards, openly masturbating. Even though these guys weren't, physically touching each other, at the end of the day, it was still a strange thing to do with your best friend. You know, if you ask me, when I saw this stuff, I was led to believe that these guys could possibly be bisexual. I mean, yes, they had girlfriends, but that didn't seem to stop them from indulging in some homoerotic behaviour. In terms of performances, I thought the cast did a wonderful job in their respective roles, and I must say, at times, I was mesmerised by the beauty of Maribel Verdú. I thought she was perfect for the role of Louisa, a mature, sexually experienced woman who quite literally came between two best friends. It was a sad end for her character, who was secretly dealing with this cancer diagnosis the whole time she was travelling with Julio and Tenoch. She decided not to tell him. She kept it to herself, and I guess in a way basically forgot about it. Louisa wanted to forget her relationship, she wanted to forget her career. I mean, she wanted to forget everything and just be in the moment while on this trip with the guys. I mean, yeah, in some ways she was enjoying the time that she had left. And discovering that the character died so soon after the trip, yeah, it was a bittersweet end to the film. As a viewer, you felt bad for the character, but that was all down to the powerful and compelling performance that was delivered by Maribel Verdú. I mean, that last shot of her character, Louisa, as she got into the sea and, dipped her head down and then came back up with a smile on her face. Yeah, that was a beautiful way to leave the character. Also, I have to praise the performances of Diego Luna and Gail Bernal. These two characters had some wonderful chemistry together, which felt very authentic. For example, the scene where those guys were hanging out and smoking weed. You know, those guys were joking around, and it felt very genuine. You know, it felt like these guys had a close bond, and with their close relationship, raised questions over their sexual orientation towards each other. Their kiss and subsequent sexual encounter at the end of the film completely changed their relationship, and it would never be the same again. And with the guys sleeping with each other, you know, it forced them to basically question their own sexual identity. Were they straight? Were they bisexual? Were they gay? I mean, these were the things that were running through those characters' heads. So yeah, just some great casting, and I'm not surprised that the two actors have gone on to have successful careers in the industry. When it comes to the look of the film, we were treated to some wonderful cinematography by Emanuel Zubecki. The beach location in particular was a real highlight for me. I mean, the white sands, the blue ocean, it was a picturesque landscape that you would definitely want to visit while on holiday. The movie also showcased the desolate parts of the Mexican outback, where people struggled to make a living from day to day, from the market sellers to the fishermen. I mean, it was a hard life for these people, worlds away from the bustling inner cities. And the large disparities between the social classes was a running theme in Tu Mama Tambien, which made the story feel more rich and substantial. It was clear that the filmmakers had a message for its audience about the Mexican politics of the time. And so, dislikes for Tu Mama Tambien from 2001. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be its pacing. Now, don't get me wrong, overall I thought the pace worked very well for the story that was being told, but upon repeat viewing, the film, I feel, does drag on from time to time. Now, I've read some online criticism where some people have said that this movie is boring. And, you know, that of course is not true. But this film does have a slow pace, which of course is not for everyone. Still, there are some moments that I felt could have been trimmed down. Clearly the filmmakers were attempting to create a certain atmosphere, a certain mood, but a tighter edit would have been welcomed. And while I think Alfonso Cuarón delivered a very poignant cinematic experience, this was not a film that you'd really kind of want to watch over and over again. I just feel that the personal turmoil that these characters faced, you know, it made for a very heavy viewing experience. And, you know, once you've seen this movie a couple of times, you don't really need to go back and revisit it as much. And so, ratings for Tu Mama Tambien from 2001. I'm going to be rating this movie a solid 5 out of 10. Dealing with themes of sexuality and masculinity, Tu Mama Tambien was this coming of age drama that didn't hold back in its approach to storytelling. It was a compelling piece of Mexican cinema that also featured a very intriguing voiceover that gave the viewers kind of a more insight into the characters' backstories. I'm not too keen on films with narration, but in this instance, I thought it flowed very well with the story. Many years have passed since I've seen this film, and having recently gone back and revisited it for the first time in a long time, yeah, I would say that this film still holds up and is an impressive entry in the filmography of director Alfonso Cuarón. And well, that's all from me today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I will be back next week with another cult movie review. Don't forget to subscribe, and of course,